Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Morris. I'm President and CEO of the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are joined today with a very special guest, Mr. Richard Tunstall. If you joined us actually for our economic forecast reporting the past few years, he has been our data guru, pulling all of that information together. And he especially did a great job this past year at our first State of the Community event, where we were able to present our annual demographic data sponsored by the Realtors Association and tie it into local headwinds and tailwinds of key areas of our local economy, like healthcare and housing and governmental decision making. So Richard, thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and the businesses in Beaufort. And we're very excited today to have you dive in a little deeper. Folks, we were able to do about a 20-minute segment at our event, but today we're going to double the amount of slides and give even more context so that you all can be even more informed. So Richard is going to lead this morning, and I'm going to tag along with him, and I hope if you have questions that you will throw it in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on those so that we can share them with the whole group. So without further ado, to get us going on this Friday morning, we'll orient you with this map. When Richard and I were planning this year's presentation, he actually had a great idea. We were talking about regional connectivity, how one area influences another, and how we all need to be aware of how beyond our Beaufort region, how the whole region looks from a demographic and statistical standpoint. So today we're going to really focus on the red area, which is the Northern Beaufort region, and the 4 census districts within that, which are Yamasee, Sheldon, Beaufort Port Royal, and St. Helena, which includes Ladies Island. Then we'll do some comparisons for the area in green, which is Ridgeland, one of the fastest growing counties. Jasper's one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, frankly. And then down in the yellow, we'll do some comparisons to our neighbors south of Broad, still in Beaufort County, as well as we share the analysis today. Richard, anything to say before we launch? Nope. Here we go. We're going to start with population.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. We're going to try and put our region in a little bit of context today, looking at population, housing, home values, age, and then a little bit on the regional economy. Starting off with population, the key takeaways that we have that within our 4 census districts, Beaufort, Port Royal, and St. Helena, they are the most populous. About 92.5% of the population of the Northern Beaufort region resides in these 2 subdivisions. Between 2010 and 2024, St. Helena was the fastest growing subdivision, but Beaufort Port Royal is now forecast to grow just slightly faster between 2024 and 29. Not rocket science, the region is on an upward growth trajectory. Average annual growth between 24 and 29 is projected at 1% annually, which is twice the national average, but only half the state's average of 1.9%. Okay. If we look at how that's distributed, the dark green are the block groups, census block groups, with the highest population numbers, and we can see the majority of the dark green lies south of Broad, particularly around Bluffton, and heading on to Hardyville. And as we get north of Broad, we're beginning to see areas of our region catch up in terms of population distribution, particularly in the more urban areas of Beaufort and up into Ladies Island as well. We're still out by the coast, which is more a result of the size of the census block group than anything else, but it still shows us a fairly densely populated area. If we look at our projected growth, again, it's kind of mirroring our current distribution with one notable exception, and that's Jasper County. The area around Ridgeland is one of the fastest growing areas in the country, as Megan said. But again, if you look at north of Broad and north of the Broad River, we are seeing pockets of high growth through Port Royal and Beaufort, and also out into Laurel Bay, and also up in the northern parts of Ladies Island.
And Richard, for the record, this area of white is predominantly lower Ladies Island?
Yes, it is.
And this area here in white reflects the area of our Marine Corps Air Station.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Move over that. Let's move on from that. Okay. If we start putting numbers onto the map, in 2024 it was estimated about 80,000 people residing in our 4 subdivisions, and that's forecast to grow to about 84,000 over the next 5 years. In terms of households, we'll look at the household growth a little bit later, but 31,000 households again in those four areas. If we look at it by individual census subdivision, then again, St. Helena and Beaufort Port Royal account for just about all of the growth. Okay, Yamasee and Sheldon are a little bit light, and 92%, 93% of the population is between St. Helena and Beaufort, with the most populous being Beaufort Port Royal at close to 50,000 people. If we look at it by percentage growth trends, those patterns become more distinct and more noticeable. That Yamasee and Sheldon have been declining in population over the years, whereas Beaufort, Port Royal, St. Helena have fueled the growth in our area. That growth is still lagging a little bit behind percentage growth rates of South Carolina as a whole. Look at the growth in context with the areas in south of Broad and in Ridgeland, and just concentrate on the average annual growth chart on the right. The Beaufort region is between 2024 and 29 is estimated to grow population at 1% annually. This compares south of Broad, which is at 2% annually, so it's growing twice as fast. And Ridgeland, which is growing at 2.3%. And the difference in the growth rate between population and households is a direct reflection of the average household sizes in those neighborhoods. South Carolina on the right is growing at 1.9% a year in terms of households.
So it's safe to say that while the Beaufort region has had a healthy growth rate, maybe a little accelerated over the pandemic bubble of 2020 to 2024, there are several areas in our state that are growing faster than Beaufort, and not too many are growing under our rate and not facing reduction in their population size.
Right. In terms of what's fueling the South Carolina growth, our areas around Charleston, Horry County, around Myrtle Beach in particular is very rapidly growing, and areas around Greenville, Spartanburg. If we try and translate that into household data, as the graphic shown before, we're about 30,900 households in our region, which is only a very small percentage of the overall South Carolina's 2.2 million, about 1.5%. The average household size at 2.36 persons per household is below both state and national averages, and that's a result of two factors. The first factor being the military bases, which tend to have small persons per household, and also with people like me moving into the area with small households of people who are retired and 65 plus. The owner occupancy rates at 53%, again, will be lower both state and national average, which leads to higher vacancy rates in the Beaufort region. 26.3%, it's almost double the state and 2.5 times the nation. And it's partly explained by our coastal orientation and a much higher percentage of seasonal, recreational, and occasional use homes, within our region, which is close to 13%, 3 times the state average and over 4 times the national average.
So we'll dive into the numbers that produce these key findings.
Yeah. There's just a basic household deal again, both with the region on the left, with households growing from 31,000 to 33,000. I'm going to get into that growth rate a little bit more and in a few subsequent slides. If we look at, is that growth rate real? Are we understating? 2 comments. One, as we look at these numbers, they've been fairly consistent over the last 5 or 6 years that we've put them together. But there are some variances that we notice. And I would encourage anybody who's looking at these numbers to take them as directional as much as actual. So I think we can be very confident in the fact that we are growing at least 1% a year and the spatial distribution of that growth. But if we want to look how real it is, we can pull building permits for Beaufort and Jasper counties, which is basically our MSA. We can't get lower than that. But between 2020 and 2024, within those areas, there were 15,000 building permits approved, of which 87% were single family. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion locally around the number of apartment buildings that seem to have popped up. We can see that in 2021, that was the year when the approval or the building of apartments seemed to pop in our area, where 27% of building permits were multifamily, way above the average from 2014 to 2020. But if we accept that Beaufort and Jasper, south of the Broad and Jasper counties, are faster growing than our region, understand that not all building permits get almost approved, get built, so that's a slightly higher number. We could probably say, given the percentage of what we're seeing going on, that we're looking at maybe 3,000 or 4,000 building permits over the 4 years, 20 to 24, that could relate to our region. And that falls pretty much in line with the 1% forecast growth rate. Maybe we're a little conservative at 1%, but these numbers, I think, help support the general direction of North of Broad growth.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. This is, I think, what the free market responding to the fact that the cost of living is so high here, and alternatives are needed to single-family homes, which are reaching a median price of $500,000. And again, these numbers reflect Beaufort as a whole county and Jasper as a whole county.
Let's look at household size a little from beyond the numbers. At 2.36, say we're below state and national averages. However, we are sort of higher than St. Helena, higher than Sheldon, and higher than Yemassee, well, about the equivalent of Yemassee. And whereas, 2.36 to 2.40, it doesn't sound like a lot, it is quite a big percentage difference. One of the reasons our household size is slightly higher is a higher number of retirees in St. Helena and Sheldon. And if we look back at household tenure, we were talking about vacation homes. They were at the Beaufort Port Royal region in 2024. We are looking at about 44% of owner-occupied, 29.4% renter, and 13.3%, 17%, sorry, 20%, if I get my chart right, 53% owner-occupied in 2024, 26% renter, and about 20% vacancy rate.
And Richard, owner-occupied in this context means folks who have a mortgage on their property or folks who own their property outright?
Yes.
Okay.
So the vacation homes, when we look at the high vacancy rates, the latest year we can get this data for is 2023, and again it's for Beaufort and Jasper County, so it includes Hilton Head as well as our our coastal islands. But you can see the percentage of vacation homes is declining since 2019. And I believe that is a function not of the falling popularity of vacation homes, but the high percentage of owner-occupied homes that are being built and unoccupied within the county as a whole. But even so, at 13%, that is significantly higher than state and national averages. Home values. And when we start looking at home values, we're going to have to look at 3 different data sets. We're going to stick with the census subdivisions and the data that we can get from the American Community Survey, which is produced by the US Census Bureau. That data, as we'll see, only goes as far as 2023. So we're going to start looking at some zip code data and pulled from realtor sites, Zillow.com. And for the realtors listening, I know that has all sorts of issues with it, but it's still a fairly good directional data source. And the National Association of Realtors, what they publish on realtor.com. But generally, and to back up Megan's comments about the median home value being sort of 500,000 or more, 56% of homes in our region were valued between 300 and a million, which is higher than South Carolina and higher than the national average. Our gross median rent in 2023, and this is all bedroom sizes, was a range of 1,500, well, nearly 1,600 in St. Helena, 1,300 in Beaufort or Royal. This compared to 1,100 in the state and 1,300 nationally. Again, an indicator of the cost of living in our region, with the issues that we'll see when we get into income distributions that brings. And I think it's important. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from this was that the median home values rose dramatically since 2000. The post-COVID bump was enormous. And from the county-wise, it went from around about 190,000 in 2000 to over 500 in 2025. In 2025, that's a figure in January of this year. That's an increase of 65%. Within our region, St. Helena is the most expensive place to buy a home at 571,000. And the region growth has been particularly strong in St. Helena and also in Port Royal, with average annual increases in home values in 2020 since 2020 of 8.6%. One thing I'd like to say about that is that when we originally presented this data a few months ago, we were looking at the price rises from 2020 to September of 2024. And in Port Royal in that period, the price increases were over 12%. So I think we are seeing some softening in home price increase, but it's still beyond healthy. Once we start drilling down with the National Association of Realtors data, then we get some more recent trends over the last few years. The highest median sales on both Zillow and the National Association of Realtors were still on St. Helena. Sales in September 24, they were reported at 630,000 compared to 570,000 that Zillow had for this January. And there's that 12.2% average in Port Royal over that time period as well.
Staggering numbers. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Okay, so if we look at home value, this is in 2023. This is the most recent year that the American Community Survey has published so far. And what I want to focus in on the graph and the table is those housing prices over $1 million. In Beaufort County, it's 12.2% of our homes over $1 million, are valued over $1 million, compared to 4% in South Carolina, which is a staggering difference. Beaufort Port Royal, we were really lagging behind at 1.8%. Again, a reflection of the military bases here and the younger age profile. Sheldon at 20%. What can I say? Sheldon is such an anomaly to me. I've tried so many times to exclude the data. It's really skewed because the sample sizes coming out of Sheldon are so small, and it appears that in Sheldon you either sell your home for 4 million or 200,000, and there's very little in between. But that really is why that figure is skewed at 20%. On the graph, Beaufort County, South Carolina are portrayed by the lines, Beaufort County, the blue line, and Beaufort Port Royal is the orange, St. Helena is the grey.
And one can assume, knowing what we know about 2024 numbers, while it's not official in the American Community data analysis, that these numbers would be even more skewed in the wrong direction.
Yes. Yeah.
Wrong direction is if you're trying to buy a house.
Yes.
Right direction is you're selling and packing up and
if
leaving.
you're selling and leaving, yeah. Okay. Not only home values, we can look at median gross rent. Again, Sheldon at 0. That's simply because the sample sizes weren't there. The last number I saw from Sheldon from the American Community Survey in 2022 was around about $500 a month. The orange line is for 2-bedroom rentals, which follow pretty closely to the overall median gross rent. One word on that, at $1,300 and $1,500 on average, and going back to the apartments that are currently being built, what we are building at the moment and renting here in the Beaufort region is not sustainable housing. Anybody who's looked at the rents that they're asking, these new, the newer builds, the newer larger apartment complexes, a 2-bedroom is averaging, I think, $1,900 to $2,000 a month, which is significantly higher than the median gross rent that we were having before. And there's really little, I think, to alleviate the pressure on sustainable housing within our community.
And would you attribute this, Richard, to the fact that demand is so high and single-family housing is so unaffordable that the market response to that is to be a higher priced, quote-unquote, luxury apartment?
I think that's one aspect. The other aspect is that if we go back to the building permit graph, we don't have to go back there, but if we relook at that, we really didn't build any apartments for 10 years, or very, very few. So the stock of apartments tended to be older, and when all these new apartments came on stream, or coming on stream, albeit at the same time, the demand for the higher rents was already there.
Yep, and the age-old tale, supply and demand.
Right.
If you have increased supply to meet your level of demand, then the prices will go down.
And just another little aside on that. Working in the real estate development community for more years than I care to admit, in whatever commercial field I've worked in, developers have a wonderful habit of seeing a good opportunity and then overbuilding it till it busts. And I think we'll see some of that in the multifamily sector here in Beaufort County in the coming years. To get a more recent and more current and more localized area, we started looking at housing prices, housing values by postal zip code. There are 9 or 10 zips in there. There's one missing from that list. It's on the map. That's 29905, which is Paris Island. 29904, the box zip, that's the Air Force Base. But these are the way that the data is broken down. Again, we look at home values from 2000 to 2025. These are the values that are taken at the end of January in each month of that year, so they're not annual averages. But you can see that in Beaufort County, we've gone from 190,000 to about 540,000 over the past 25 years. The most stunning increases, I'd say, for Port Royal, from 80,000 to 330. And St. Helena Island is still far away in terms of numbers, the highest value. And there's the Sheldon anomaly that really messes up my graph.
And just a reminder here, and you all know, St. Helena Island in this context is truly St. Helena Island, which includes Daughtah and Fripp and Harbor. as opposed to when we talk about it on the census district breakout. In that case, not this case, it includes Lakeside.
Correct. Yeah. To just highlight the median home value change between, in the last 5 years, the grey on the graph is that change from 2020 to 25. The orange is 2010 to 2020, and the blue, I cut the graph off at 2005 to 2010. But you see how the grey just dominates. In 29915, which is in fact Bluffton, the increase in 2020 to 2025 was $325,000. And that came on relatively small declines or flat prices from 2005 to 2020. That's just a stunning number. Port Royal from changing $7,000 from 2005 to 2010, 145,000 and 140,000 from 2020 to 25.
This to me is one of the most eye-opening graphs, and I'm really grateful that Richard put it together for us today. This is probably one of the top 5 graphs that we as a Chamber of Commerce that cares greatly about our workforce and our colleagues who are on the line today at the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust. This is the type of graphic that we can give a lot of substantive, eye-opening data and make a very clear message of why we're working so hard and pushing so hard to improve the opportunities for folks to afford to live here so they can work here.
Looking at the percentage changes again between 2020 and 25, this is average annual change across the board, going up, just under 9% in some cases. And again, this is average annual change. So if you're looking at a $500,000 home in 2020, that 10% is going to be, close to $50,000 a year over 4 or 5 years, which I would proffer is an unsustainable rate of growth. And we are seeing it, I say, begin to mitigate slightly from the peak increases between 2020 and 2024. Switching to the National Association of Realtors, this was data that was pulled in September of 2024, most recently. The numbers are slightly different, they're higher. Again, that reflects, I think, some mitigation and also the difference in the change to data collection. But it's also there just to show that the direction in the 2 data sources are the same. High inflationary household value, home value growth. And that's just a graphic illustration of that, looking at the Beaufort County average, which is our median, I should say, which is right at 600,000, and the areas within our overall county. This isn't just the Beaufort region. We're only really higher in the areas on Hilton Head and on St. Helena, 29920 at 650.
And a little bit of a spoiler alert here, we'll see this same symmetry when we talk about income.
Yes, we will. Just a percent value change. Again, the average annual percent is the orange line, and the total percent is 29935 Port Royal, up 37%. 29945 is also a Beaufort, and that's at 33%. Let's put that in context. The green highlighted zip codes in green are those that fall north of Broad. Those in yellow are south of Broad. This does not include Jasper County. South of Broad is still showing stronger median home value growth, up as high as 9% in Bluffton, 29915, but the lowest average annual change is at over 7%. whereas north of Broad we range from just under 6 to a high of 8.6 that we highlighted before. Again, it's kind of beating the dead horse, but you see the same in population numbers and population distribution, household distribution, home value, and as Megan said, we're going to see the same sort of phenomena when we start looking at incomes.
And I really appreciate, Richard, that you have different data sets and different perspectives on the same data as a confirmation of the takeaways here.
Income. So we've established that we are a high cost of living place to live in terms of what it costs to rent and what it costs to buy a home. Unfortunately, this isn't supported by our incomes. Per capita income and median household income are equivalent to state averages, but below national averages. 13% for per capita income and median household income 11% below. I think this reflects two things. It reflects the historical nature of our economies, and as well as our age profiles, with a significant number of people being on fixed incomes. Within our region, St. Helena subdivision is significantly higher than other county subdivisions. And again, St. Helena, by this definition, does include Ladies Island. And we're very sort of bifurcated in terms of our income. We have 34% of average household incomes below 50,000, which is just a little bit higher than national average, but only 33% over 100,000 a year, which is significantly below the national average. The higher incomes in the county are concentrated south of Broad River, around Lutton and Hilton Head, where the median household income south of the Broad is just over 96,000 compared to our 70. So again, the distributions use a different colour because it's the only way I can tell the difference between the population distribution and everything else. South of Broad, the higher incomes are. I think it's interesting to note that the Ridgeland area, whereas it's very, very high population growth, is lower income. And I think that is where a substantial number of the more affordable housing is being built at the moment, which would indicate that if you're a service worker on Hilton Head, you have a long commute to come to work. If we look at our trends, generally growth trends, particularly since 2020, I think what we all acknowledge the cost of living increases and the high inflation, both in home values and just generally. What we tend to forget is that our wages have also seen pretty high increases since that period as well. Median household income going from 50,000 to 70,000 in those 4 years is a huge percentage increase. When we look between 2010 and 2020, median household income only went up by 5,000 in those 20 years. We're expecting that to moderate as we go out to 2029, but from a personal income and a household income status, we have seen large increases that in some ways have helped mitigate the cost of living increases. Unfortunately, when we break that down in terms of income distribution, it's not been evenly felt across all income brackets. Median household income by subdivision, again showing St. Helena as being leaps and bounds ahead of anywhere else. Beaufort Port Royal at 68,000, again that's suppressed by the military bases here. The average pay for a Marine cadet isn't that great.
But their housing's free.
But the housing's free, yeah. And if we look at that distribution, we're looking here at average household income. I don't have the data for median household income by income bracket, but there we can see that then if we look at over 150, and the nation, we're about 24% of our households have an income of over 150, which is 17% in South Carolina and only 16% in our region. And conversely, we're slightly above national averages in those under 35,000.
I read from a pretty reputable source yesterday, I believe, that with the cost of living and inflationary changes over the last 25 years, making $100,000 today is the equivalent of making $54,000 in the year 2000.
Yeah. It came as a surprise to me. I've been dealing with this demographic data all my professional life and working with retailers. And the increase in the average and median household incomes really crept up on me. When we were doing work for the better fashion stores, people like Nordstrom and Saks, for years and years we considered $100,000 to be a higher income. $100,000 a year is now the national average, nearest darn it. And in a way, the way we measure our income through the Census Bureau, those income brackets have not kept pace with the change of income. And the highest that's reported is over $200,000 a year, which I don't think gives a very good picture of where the true high incomes are spatially located.
So here's our heat map on household income. Again, a different color, but very similar pattern.
Yeah. Again, income in context, we mentioned that in 2024, which is the third column in the table, South of Broad was at 96,000. Richland was 34,000, lower than that, and the Beaufort region came somewhere in the middle at 71. Whereas we are seeing increased incomes here north of Broad, we still have a long way to go to catch up with Lupton and Hilton Head.
Yeah, so every time we ring the bell that we need some economic diversification, some higher paying jobs, you all can see why that's so important to our region.
Age.
Oh, what a good transition.
We're kind of old. In 2024, our median age was 44.1, compared to 40 in South Carolina and 39 nationally. We have a very high concentration of 15 to 24-year-olds, 18% within the region, and this reflects the military presence. Conversely, and more worryingly, we are underrepresented in key high-earning cohorts of 25 to 54, 32% compared to 37% in South Carolina. The good news about that is that gap is narrowing a little compared to when we first started looking at this data 6 or 7 years ago, but it's still very much there. And the percentage of 65 plus is going to increase. We're at 20%, 22% in 2024, and that's going to 25% in 2029, and it's going to particularly increase in the higher age cohorts. So again, different color, but the same pattern. The median age, the darker the green, the higher the median age. We see them hugging the coastline. Cost of living has always been popular with retirees. The area that's immediately south of Broad is very reflection of Sun City, I think, going in there. Mm-hmm. And the white areas are very, illustrate the base, the bases.
The only white areas in both counties, 3 regions, are our military bases.
Military bases, and Laurel Bay is the light green as well. So this is just going into a bit more detail on the age cohort. The line, the gap, is how our age is indexed to South Carolina, and we can see the spike, the 18 to 24-year-olds, and the valley, if you like, in the 15 to in the 25 to 54-year-olds. The 85 and over index, I would point out here in 2024, is we're right about the state average at the moment, at 1.8%. If we go to the next graph, the age projection there shows us speeding up, and with an index of 1.5 times the state average in that older age cohort, which that sort of increases the impact of the valley, if you like. The index line goes higher the older we get.
Right. So this is a really great graph that shows A, the importance of the military.
Yeah.
B, the major challenge our area is facing to recruit and retain prime workforce ages. And then C, the strain on services like healthcare, or not strain, increased demand, that if we can't find the workforce will become a strain
Yeah.
on services for folks who are old, in those older age demographics, as I hope to be one day.
I would say that graph should scare Russell Baxley and Beaufort more. If we look at our aging context, again, we can see the impact on the military in our region. South Carolina at 40, the Beaufort region at 44.1 is higher, but South of Broad is 54 years old, median age, which is probably one of the older median ages that I've seen across the country. Richland is a little bit younger, but showing a real sort of mix, 49.
And I did ask Richard not too long ago what the Beaufort region average age would be if we did not factor those who are at the air station or Parris Island or the Naval Hospital, take out military. He was able to crunch that with his big magical computer and determine that if we did take out the military affiliated folks that are living in our region currently, our average age would jump up to almost 47 years old.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Labour force and employment. You know, I was almost tempted to just take this section out because I don't know what's going on at the moment and what the numbers are going to show over the next 3 to 12 months and how real these are. But these are at least a good starting point to learn where we have been up until the last few years. What we've seen is our civilian labour force has increased every year since 2014, even through the pandemic, which was not usual for many areas of our country. And both labour force and employment is now well above pre-pandemic levels. Unemployment in 2023 at year end was 2.8%, which is an extremely tight labour market. It was at 3.8% in 2024, the most recent number I saw for February was just over 4%. Still an incredibly tight labour market. Our distribution of employment, 75% of our employment in Beaufort County, and these are county numbers, not region, are in services and retail trade, compared to about 65% nationally. Services is not traditionally, or certain service sectors are not traditionally the highest paid sectors in our economy. And within the service sector, we had above average incidence in arts and entertainment and recreation and hospitality sectors. So the average annual earnings were below national averages in every component of our economy. And the average annual earnings in arts and entertainment and rec and hospitality are among the lowest in the service sector. And again, you see the importance of the armed services to the Beaufort region.
The point here, and we won't dwell on it, is that we are a very connected region with folks traveling to and from all of these different areas of the Low Country every day, and we're not any of us surprised because we're in the traffic. But if folks could afford to live a little closer to where they work, we would probably have less traffic.
The reason I said sit by that, the most recent data we can get from that is 2022. It's a function of the Census Bureau and the timeline there. The Bureau of Labour Statistics publish our labour force stats every month. 2014 we had an employment rate of 5.5%, and say in December that was up to 3.8%. That's a provisional number. I don't expect that will change that much as we move forward. But we have a civilian labour force now of over 81,000, and that's 7,000 higher than the onset of the pandemic in 2020.
And I believe this is right in line with the state unemployment rate as well.
Yes. There's our employment by sector. The big blue part of the pie is our services, at 57% compared to 45%. And retail trade at 17.5%, which is 1.7 times above the national average. And again, retail trade is not one of the highest paid sectors, as we'll see. And the service employment, again, we just mentioned hospitality, 37%, is significantly higher than national averages, and so is arts, entertainment and recreation. The worrying numbers there for us in terms of incomes are the low percentage of professional and technical workers and management and enterprise, which are the highest paid service sectors. Indexed to the USA, we can see how below average we are in terms of professional technical management again, and how above average we are in arts, entertainment, hospitality, and the ubiquitous other. Anything that you can't think of where it would be, that's where it goes.
Surprising numbers, especially here.
Yes. And our average weekly earnings, just to wrap this up, we can see if we look at the graph on the right, within Beaufort County indexed to the nation as a whole, aside from professional tech and management and enterprises in our service sector, in the service sector we are below national average weekly wage, just right across the board. Across the broader economy, again, the grey line is the USA national average, and the only line that the only time we go above that is in our federal government. Don't know how the federal government numbers are going to look as we go forward. We don't have a higher reliance on the federal government in terms of employment within the county to the parts of the country. I think we have about 4,000 or 5,000 people working in the federal government. I don't know how they've been impacted by the recent efficiency purge.
And federal government in this context, correct me if I'm wrong, does not include armed forces.
No, this is civilian labor force.
Right.
So the implications.
This is our roundup slide, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah. Overall growth, we saw is robust and very healthy for the local economy. Concentration of where it is going to place some pressure on our infrastructure and services. The current and projected age distribution, we are underrepresented in critical earning years, and increasing older residents is going to increase pressure on service provision. And the incomes are very unevenly distributed across the region. And again, this is going to have certain implications on our future growth patterns. These incomes reflect the nature of our local economy, and locally the impact of the armed services is clear. In the private sector, an overrepresentation of jobs on poorly paid components, barriers to attracting new industry, and requires inbuilt labor force.
So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing our screen now. Thank you all again for joining us. And we will make this available, this full presentation available on our website and share it with the full chamber membership coming up. There's a lot of takeaways here, which we shared throughout. I hope you find this information beneficial in just understanding the region that you live in and work in. I hope you can use it to inform some of your business decisions and share with others who are making decisions on behalf of the businesses and municipalities in the region, because it's really important. This is really important information, and not just a 1-year snapshot, but the growing, the consistency with which Richard has been able to share this with us over the past 4 years, and the trends we're able to deduce from it is really, really helpful directional information. Because the fact of the matter is, we've got a lot of things going for us. This is an amazing region to live in, but we have a lot of really important challenges to overcome so that we do not fall behind. We have a healthy level of growth that, if not kept up, would put us in a really precarious situation. And your Chamber of Commerce thinks 10, 20, 30 years down the road. My first day on the job, I said, I hope that every child like me who sat at a desk at a Beaufort County School District has a chance and an opportunity to grow, flourish, and thrive here in our region. So when we look at this data and decisions that impact us 20 years from now, what we want to be like as a region, that really rings true to me. So Richard, thank you always. I always owe you big time. I always say that. It's a pretty consistent trend there too. So we appreciate all the work that you put into this.
My pleasure.
Does anyone have any final questions? You can throw them in the chat or you can send them to me by email. Either way, but I'll just open the floor real quick for any final comments or questions. Hearing none, I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your Friday and that you get to enjoy all the great festivities and things that are happening in our region. Don't forget the air show is this weekend, so whether you're joining it at the air station itself, by boat, or by a well-placed backyard, hope you take that in, and I hope everyone has a wonderful spring break as well. Thanks again for tuning in with us today.
Thank you.